Hi, Patty.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, and you?
I am good.
Yeah? At least we got a nice day, huh?
We did. At least it's not crazy raining.
Yeah, I know, but what a winter it's been.
It has. How
Hasn't
are
it?
you? Yeah,
Gosh! Are you looking forward to summer?
I am actually. It will be a nice change from this winter.
How's your new job going?
I love it. I really do. I mean, there's just so much history to the Mariah Mitchell, and the people on the staff are fantastic. The board's really amazing group of people, and just really into what they do, and it's exciting stuff. And I enjoy the issues that they kind of do, and so it's a nice fit. So.
Okay, well that's great to hear. And but you think you got enough time with all this? I mean, to run again? I mean, that's my first
After
question is
6
why
years,
are you running?
6 years are gonna.
Yeah, that's right. This would be your third attempt.
Right.
Yeah.
The why I'm running is kind of straight up. I love the job. I mean, I really enjoy doing it. I like everything from the new things that I learn to the people I meet, and it's ultimately something that enriches my life. I mean, in some very important way, and that's exactly I think a good motivator. And I believe that as I kind of do the job, as long as I do it as well as I set my standards for, which are pretty high, then I should continue, because I can offer that, certainly that his experience and, some of the learning curve, which I certainly wouldn't have to necessarily, catch up with, so after 6 years. But no, it's great. It's good.
I've asked all you guys to do something a little different this year. I've asked each one of you, because there's so many, we need to probably get this moving, keep it moving, to ask the kind of question you would want answered by each candidate. And so every candidate has given me a question that I'm going to ask you guys. So we'll start with yours.
All right.
How should the town continue its efforts to live within the expected revenues?
And it's, for me, that's sort of the core question. We have worked hard over my tenure on the board, and that would be for 6 years, to make sure that no matter what, and the no matter what in our case has been pretty substantial, because we've had some really tough economic times, that we make it our goal to live within revenue. And I think that that's very fundamental to this job, that we need the kind of rigor and the kind of responsibility that says, we are a community that values living within our means, and if we do it for our own, in our own lives, we need to expect the town to do it. And I would hope that any colleagues of mine that would serve on the board, and obviously I'm committed to doing it going forward, would retain that as a fundamental principle. And it's not always easy. It means a little bit of hard decisions sometimes, and sometimes creative decisions. Right. I think we've done both, and to make it work. But it's been something I'm very proud of, and I believe I share with the other members of the group, and would hope to share with any new members that would come on board.
Okay.
Ways to do it. Again, we've been creative. We've reorganized. We've cut personnel. Personnel is a driving cost. We're looking now at things like longevity pay, retirements, issues like that are very fundamental and important, because the good and the bad of any kind of town budget are the people. The people are really where the cost is, and obviously the people are where the energy is, where the good things happen as well, and we just want to make sure that we keep all that in balance.
All right. Matt Fee's question. What do you think is the biggest problem facing us as a community, and what do you think the selectmen can and should do to address it?
We have, and I think Matt has the same experience. I mean, when you serve on the board, what you become painfully aware of is sometimes you just can't predict necessarily what the next big issue is going to be. And, so we can say, we've got erosion issues, we've got issues with respect to water quality, we've got issues that we're working on, all of these things. But we've got, downtown, which is fundamentally something very important to me, and keeping it alive and healthy. Those are the kinds of things that we do make sure that every time we do, our job, we are thinking through what kinds of ways we can help facilitate getting to a good place and all of that. I mean, it's a wonderful, beautiful place, and obviously, beyond the finances, there's there's the natural environment. There's also, the people here and how they live. And so again, I would list them. I would talk about the financial, as I did in the first part. I didn't want to repeat it because I just went through that a little bit more in detail. But obviously, there's also the nature of the island, the erosion issues with respect to water quality. And in many cases, the good news is that we're far ahead than our neighbors. I mean, what's going on in the Cape and some of these same issues, we can look with some satisfaction that we've had a bit more foresight, I think, in sort of setting ourselves in a good place. But that being said, I do have to add that you never can tell what the next big issue is going to be. So. Right.
Okay. All right. Alan Reinhardt's question: why do you believe voters should choose you over other candidates for a seat on the Board of Selectmen? And what abilities and attributes make you the most qualified for this highest town governing board?
I guess, in Alan's a pretty positive guy, so I'm not saying that this is negative anyway. But rather than look at me versus someone else, I think, especially given the sort of the experience that I have for 6 years, I mean, I can focus my answer on me, I think, and be pretty comfortable. People have seen me for 6 years, and they know that I give my all to this job, and I ultimately. It's for me a very personal responsibility. Many times you make decisions on the Board of Selectmen that impact people's lives, whether it be, their businesses or their families or their values or their home. This is not small stuff. Oftentimes, we are confronted with questions and balances in a community where one side gets some others might not get as much. Whatever the outcome is, they're tough. And what I would say, as a Board of Selectmen or a candidate for the Board of Selectmen, that if you give your all to the job, that's the most important thing that you can offer. And if you don't, then you're irresponsible. And we've seen it, and it's not hard it's not hard to see when someone's not doing that. I mean, all you have to do is watch, and you can sort of get a sense that they're not actually doing much. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours, especially if you work like I do with a family. But ultimately, it is about committing yourself to doing it and making sure that happens.
Okay, Steve Morey's question. In the last couple of years, we have seen volunteers resign from advisory committees, including the Town Energy Study Committee and the Taxi Advisory Committee. How do you think the Board of Selectmen has handled citizen input? And if elected, would you do it differently? Would you do so differently?
I think ultimately when you're talking about advisory groups and citizen volunteers, I mean, we all are citizen volunteers. I would remind Steve, this is basically from one end of the spectrum to the other. We all put our time in as volunteers. And when we negotiate any kind of an issue, there's always going to be some that are happy with the results and some that are not. And ultimately, it's not just about the volunteers on the committee, it's about the stakeholders that might also weigh in, that may not have a formal place on the committee, but they obviously live within our community. And getting all those things together and getting the balance exactly right is not an easy job. And I would encourage people, even if they're frustrated, to stay put. Keep on working it out. I mean, walking away from something is not the right way to handle it at all. If you are committed to it, and even if you're unhappy with a direction, it is your responsibility, in my opinion, to stay put and to see it to the end and to see what you can do to influence it if you believe that your position on something is the right way to go. So, while we as a Board of Selectmen oftentimes are in a position of hearing from a board or commission, we have a responsibility from an advisory, they are basically advisory boards. We have a responsibility as well to the electorate to say yes or no, that we agree or disagree. So there's many places at which somebody might not feel or they may feel frustrated, but again, it's all part of the process. We do as well, and you've got to stick it out and you've got to stay in there and give your representation the true voice that it deserves.
Okay. Tobias Glidden, what do you believe will be the most difficult part for you in being a selectman?
Well, I guess it's the hard choices sometimes when you know your neighbor. We often say on the board that the roughest time that we have is when we do appointments. It's funny, to committees, which is sort of dovetails with the other question, because sometimes you do get a number of very qualified individuals, and you do get confronted with a situation where it's a good situation. You have too many good people to choose from, and you have to say no to somebody. And I think that's a reflection on sometimes other issues where you've got to make, decisions about people's futures, whether it be their business, whether it be their family, their home, their whatever that might be. And you know them. It's a small place. I mean, Nantucket is not a place where you're at all isolated from, the impact of what it is that you've decided. And sometimes I do think that that gets a little bit difficult. Not because people come back and say something to you, but just as an individual, you feel it. So I would have to say that to me is one of the tougher things.
Okay. Carol Dunton, do you think the Board of Selectmen should have been more diligent in supervision of the Airport Commission and the Airport Enterprise account during the several years the financial problems were allowed to develop?
I think the airport is one of those case studies, and on any level, what we could have done better. You take a look back at it, and during the course of time where the discussions were happening, and I think Carol remembers this as well, it wasn't that, it wasn't that clear. There was an awful lot of attempts to sort of get our hands around what was going on there, and financially, it was difficult to do that. And I believe that the commission, as it changed, as new people we appointed, I mean, again, that was sort of our role, was to appoint the commission, and the commission's role at some level to supervise the day-to-day operations. The change in the commission is something that we can take credit for, and that commission is what really got to the bottom of what the issues were out there. Since then, of course, we've taken a lot more aggressive steps to make sure that there's a little bit less distance between the administrative staff of the town and the administrative staff of the airport. And I think that is, in retrospect, the most important thing that's happened in terms of in terms of changes, and certainly in terms of checks and balances, because there was just a little bit too much distance between what we thought was and what we were told was, the airport's independence and the town. And it's not so, and it can't be so, and we saw the results of it, because although I do think it's important to point out there was never any criminal activity, it was sloppy. And that sloppiness caught up with both them and with the town. And in any kind of organization, the more eyes on it, the more important, the less sloppy, the more rigorous you're going to have as an end result. So, I do think that it took time to change the commission. Again, a volunteer group of individuals that were doing their best, but they, again, were operating under some assumptions that had to do with, the independence of the airport manager that just weren't true. And, I do believe we've caught up on that and tightened that loop. So I guess that's an answer that says yes and also no. I mean, I think we did do an awful lot to get to the bottom of it. Okay.
And then the final question's from Joe Perry. Do you remember how Nantucket used to be?
Well, it's funny. There's an awful lot of memory in my mind of Nantucket that didn't include childhood necessarily, but certainly included my children's childhood. And I do believe that we have a wonderful island here, and that the island now is such an exciting place. I mean, if you have, like I do, I live with teenagers, and they love it here. And what this island brings to them and the special nature of their community is something that I value. So, I want to say that what we've always had is that core, and what we've always will hopefully continue to protect is that core that says to our children and to the folks that live here, we are a special place, and we do care about one another, and this community has that going for it in so many different ways, that it gives all of us just this wonderful foundation wherever we go. So.
All right. And is there anything else you'd like to say to the folks out there?
I do think that it's it's a difficult choice with so many candidates. I appreciate all of their running. I know that it's tough. I've done it myself, and for some of them it's the first time. And I want to say, you know, bravo to anyone who throws their hat in the ring. Frankly, it's not easy, and I hope the Nantucket remembers and to treat us all and wave to us when we're standing at the dump and all the other things.
Sure.
But I hope for their vote, and I will continue to do the job that I've shown them I could do for 6 years.